The next session is about data-driven customer success. And to join me on stage, I have a panel of experts who come from a wide variety of different areas. So I'd like Anne and Steve and Hatim and Noam to come up and join me. I was like, where'd Noam go? Thanks. Thanks for joining. So to get us started, what I wanted to do was have everybody do a quick introduction. And so what we've done is we've put them together in alphabetical order. So Anne is Adobe. You narrowly beat out AppDynamics.
I think it's in order of technical ineptitude. Okay. So I'm, I think, the lone marketer up here. And so we use data in a very, very pervasive way. I'm just showing you here kind of the three major kind of steps that we have for every single marketing campaign that we do. And we start out really with kind of a predictive model, if you will, based on all of the historical spending that we've done in the past. We use econometric modeling to both forecast what the budget for a given campaign should be, based, again, on lost probably 3 to 5 years of history, if we can get it. And then we forecast what we will need to achieve a given bookings or revenue target. And then we actually look at the optimum mix that we will need. So we are able to constrain variables to figure out how much money we should spend on search versus display versus television. And so we come up with a number. Then over the course of the campaign, we're constantly measuring, and we look functionally at every single different marketing activity to see how we can optimize those over the course. So it's very iterative, hourly, daily, we're looking at how we can optimize our spend. And at the end, which used to be the only time that marketers could kind of tell what was going on, I produce basically a presentation to my boss, the CEO or the CFO, tell them how we performed, and I ask for more money. So it used to be very hard to ask for more money because I really had no evidence whatsoever whether anything was working before we had any kind of marketing automation technology. And now that's like the key moment when I can go in and actually say we expected to have a 3.5x ROI. We actually delivered 4x ROI on this campaign. Therefore, I need more money. And here's how much I need. So the other thing I would just say, if you could flip to the next slide, is for us in particular, data is a very, very important component. And our business is actually comprised of two pieces: creative software, which is kind of our heritage, Photoshop, whatnot. And then our new kind of data business. But I think data in and of itself is really insufficient. I mean, we believe that from marketing purposes, the big idea, the creative concept, the content, the emotion is where you start. And then the ability to actually measure that is kind of the magic on top of that.
Great, thanks. And now, Hatim, if you could introduce yourself,
Thank you,
that'd
Bill.
be great.
So I play a dual role in AppDynamics. I'm the Chief Customer Officer. I also play the CIO. So I have all the front-end and the back-end technologies. So let me introduce AppDynamics first. We started off as an APM company, so we do performance management for your applications. And then we are slowly evolving into an application intelligence company. So we are evolving ourselves to not only giving you the visibility into your transactions right from the front end all the way into the database or the back ends, but also allowing you to manage your applications better through automation. And then there's a lot of rich data that we can collect from the transactions in real time as they're being processed. And that data, we want to make it available to our end users through our analytics product line so that they can do all sorts of queries in real time, make decisions, and so on and so forth. Just like we are trying to redefine how application intelligence should be done and how does that drive your business, we're trying to redefine how post-sales should be done. We call it Customer Success 2.0. And Customer Success 2.0 is nothing but instrumenting every milestone in the life cycle of what it takes right from when the deal is closed all the way to actually delivering the ROI for the customer, understanding each of those milestones, and then really using that data from each of those milestones to derive how to make decisions, how to take actions. Our customers running into product issues. What do we do at that time? Are deployments taking longer? Why are they taking longer? How do we make it more efficient? How do we deliver ROI faster for the customer? Are champions leaving from our customer side? That's sort of a big cause of why accounts churn a lot of times. Champions who bought your product probably left and went to another company, and now you have to resell almost your product again. And if you as a vendor know that the champions are leaving, then you can actually proactively start a campaign to train the new users, make sure they understand the product and are using it. So all of these things that are constantly happening in the customer's life cycle, we need to be able to derive that data and act on it. So that's essentially what Customer Success 2.0 is. And we are a big proponent of actually using all of this data to be proactive around how do we deliver the sort of actual value to the customers. And the way we actually think about it is customer success is so important in driving the top line for the business, because most of the customers are in the land and expand model. So they try out the product in a small area. If you make them really successful in that area, then you have a chance to go get the rest of their business. And really compressing this life cycle of the customers in the first deployment or in the consecutive deployments is really important for you to go back and ask for more money in the form of expansion. So really post-sales has evolved from just being a checkbox on the contracts that you have, support and so on and so forth, to becoming one of the big business drivers. And data is one of the sort of big pieces in that puzzle for us.
Great. Super. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
And Noam, if you could introduce
All right, well,
yourself.
thank you. So I'm Noam Reininger, and I'm a product leader at Dun & Bradstreet. I lead our API and data as a service products. And I'll just give two quick stories about what we do. It's all about relationships, and we're a very old company in that space. Abraham Lincoln worked at Dun & Bradstreet, so I have this great legacy that I'm following after. Right? And so basically, we help people clarify who they have a relationship with and how they can grow it. So last week, I was a very large European bank talking to their chief data officer about how to really understand who her customers are, the type of relationships that they have, and the amount of risk that that portfolio has. And then as they onboard new customers, they want to make sure that they're not doing business with terrorists or money launderers. And so that was part of our conversation as well. So that's one area where we help. The other one, and this is really exciting to be here at this conference, is we look at an enterprise and at all the systems that CIOs and CMOs have invested in, and how there's rivers of data flowing into those systems, and how do you really make those dirty rivers of data really clean so you can make better decisions. And so, for example, we help our customers with data that's coming into their website and personalizing that, identifying who the customer is by firmographics, and as that data then flows and makes its way into the enterprise, it's clean from the start, we've enriched it, and the decisions that get made in the future with that data are much more clear. So we're like the Waze. We turn GPS systems in organization into Wazes as far as growing relationships. Okay?
Super. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things to point out about D&B was, as we were prepping for this panel, we talked about which companies sort of work with each other, and D&B was the one that worked with all of us in a variety of different ways, customers, partners, so it was interesting to see the types of collaboration. Steve?
Awesome. Well, my name's Steve Sloan. I lead our products and engineering organization at Marketo. And then I know we actually have a number of customers here, but for those of you who don't know us, we are dedicated to the art and science of marketing. And it's an interesting combination. I think especially interesting in the conversation we're having today, because we were founded by a physicist, a biologist, and a history major. And I think that it sort of sums up what we need to bring together to answer all these hard questions and deal with all the data inside of our organizations today. We allow marketers to not only run their campaigns, but answer that age-old quote from John Wanamaker. I know I'm wasting half of my, he said, advertising, but call it marketing budget. I just don't know which half. And that has plagued marketers forever. And we're at this really cool moment where that doesn't have to be true anymore for marketers. And I think this is an exciting time where that's really about to disappear. It hasn't disappeared yet, but I think we're sort of on the verge of it. But it does point out this challenge, which is it is both science, not only all the infrastructure that a lot of us work on, it's the data science, it's the probability theory, but it's also the art, things like the storytelling. One of the dynamics I've really noticed working with our data scientists over the past couple years is you have to cross this chasm between all of the data you have and the dirty data that you have to deal with, which is all these hard technical challenges. But then what's the narrative to this? Like, how do I, as a business owner, make a decision and understand this broader discussion when, in many cases, a lot of it feels very, very technical and, frankly, unapproachable? And if we just click the slide there, one of the challenges I think we all face is, as we look at this picture, if you're anything like me, my brain tells me the wrong pink circle is bigger. And this is one of those things that we face in data analysis all the time. We as humans, our brains kind of don't lead us in the right direction when it comes to interpreting data, in terms of understanding data, and importantly, in communicating data. And so while on one hand, there's this huge excitement about all the things we can do to data, I think there's a bunch of challenges we all face as a group, whether it's inside of our own organization or as people who build tools for others.
Great, thanks. So I really wanted to start us off with a question about how you define customer success inside of your organization, and if you feel like you have a unified view of that. So I don't know if one of you wants to go ahead and start. You feel?
Sure, I can.
Hatim?
So in my mind, customer success is basically a two-part theory. One is, are you delighting your customers? And that's basically all about the experience. When they interact with you, are you responding to them fast enough? Are you solving their problem? But there's a second big part to it, which is, did you really deliver the ROI that you promised to them when the deal was closed? And we track all of those metrics. We have basically, we have the CSAT scores, the NPS scores to track the experience part, but then we have created an adoption sort of matrix to figure out how sticky is a software in the customer's environment, are they really using the software, and so on and so forth. And those adoption metrics combined with the CSAT metrics really define what customer success is for us and how we drive it.
Super.
Yeah.
Steve?
As we look at customer success, I think that's an awesome view. And we had a chance to talk a little bit about how rigorous you guys are before the panel. It's pretty impressive. There's another view, which is how do we make our customers successful? About 6 months ago, I was out visiting a customer at a huge electronics company. And we were talking about the product and how they're dealing with their funnel and all the measurements they're taking. And then all of a sudden, he stopped. He paused. And he said, but you know what's really changed? They have to listen to me now. I thought, what? What's this? What'd you say? Well, they have to listen to me now. Well, what do you mean? He said, I've been going to these executive meetings for 5 years, ever since I started this company. And every year, sort of, as you said, like the CMO, he was the CMO walks in and I have to argue for more money. And it was an argument, a drop-down, drag-out fight every single time to ask for more money because I didn't have the data. And now they have to listen to me. The arguments have stopped. I get my money. And when I see moments where our customers are able to take the data and make something happen, that's not only, he was talking about his company, but he was also talking about his profession. He was talking about his career. And seeing those moments where people are able to take the power of the data and do something with it that's great for their customers, but also great for themselves, is to me that moment where you see the human side of it, where all kind of comes home to roost.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful to hear. Noam, do you have?
Sure. So for us, customer success is about a customer's ability to grow their relationships. So I'll use a story from Pitney Bowes. So they were really struggling of, what prospect do they talk to next? And so how do I use data and analytics to grow relationships? And we help them by looking at their current file and the potential in our universe with our analytics team. And they were able to find exactly who their customers were and grow those really same type of valuable relationships. And that's whether it's my prospects, my customers that I have today, how risky are they? Do I want to grow or shrink that relationship? My suppliers, it's are we helping our customers really enhance their relationships with people and other corporations that they do business with?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with everything everybody else has said about, whether it's bookings or revenue, retention, customer sat. I think another thing that we look at is kind of the level of love that the customers are exhibiting for us. And that's a very kind of, intangible, but I'll give you an example. Our communities are very rich, especially the creative community. We have millions of people who love to use Photoshop or Illustrator, a lot of our creative products. And we actually ask them to participate in our marketing. And we don't pay them. They want to participate because they want to show what they can do with the products and because they just love these products. So we just did a commercial. Photoshop just celebrated its 25th anniversary. We did a commercial for the Oscars, just a quick anecdote. A week before, my boss crazily said, Ann, we don't have any images from movies in this ad. And I'm like, well, a week before, you're not going to get any images from movies because that takes like 6 years. And he said, well, no, what about if we ask a couple of the filmmakers who've done films for us? And I said, okay, I'll get right on it. So he calls, this is a true story. He said, I'm going to contact Jeffrey Katzenberg. I know him. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. And I'm like, sure, Shantanu, whatever. 10 minutes later, Jeffrey Katzenberg says, absolutely. What films do you want clips from? Then we call David Fincher from Gone Girl. He's like, oh, I would love to participate. Then we call whoever, and 2 days later, we have 6 pieces of actual clips. And that's just one example. We have submissions of people who constantly want to participate. It's very intangible. However, I think, as a layer on top of all these very important quantifiable metrics, there are still those intangibles that we factor in.
Great. So Steve had a really good example of here's sort of an epiphany that he's seen with data, and Anurag had another good story. What would be really interesting, I think, for the audience is, was there an example of where you saw really data change either your customers' insights and their ability to make a decision, or even inside of your company where you're like, Ann talked about, here's how arguing with Shantanu has been an easier argument, and I know it hasn't gotten that much easier because I was at Adobe for a while, but other stories that you guys can tell that you're like, here was the real epiphany for me that you want to share with the audience?
Steve, do you want to go first this time?
Sure, yeah. So this was 16 months ago, so last fall. We were just basically looking at how customers use our products and asking any number of, it's one of these things. You start out and it's a little bit of a wild goose chase. You're trying to find a thread. And funny enough, one of the questions we asked was, how often do people log into the product? And it seems like an innocuous enough question. And most of the users logged in 4.2 times a week, so it's kind of a daily habit. We thought that was a wonderful thing. But there was this other cluster of customers who logged in about once every 30 days. And we're like, well, wait a second, there's a whole cluster of them. What's the deal there? And this triggered off a whole bunch of other questions, which I think is an important theme here, which is that quantitative data will tell you something, and then there's this whole qualitative inquiry that we have to go do, which is really usually where the richness comes out. And what we discovered was our core historical users who used all the time, especially in our larger customers, had these colleagues who used the product occasionally. Turns out we hadn't really built with them in mind. And so we went out to try and figure out who these people were, and we came up with this persona. Her name is Judy. Judy's really wonderful. But Judy is an occasional user. And so her profile is really different. And it turns out, occasionally, our system allows you to do things like send lots of email. Occasionally, Judy will go in and do things like send email to everyone in Europe, like everyone, which is not exactly what you want. And so it was this seemingly innocuous question that led us to a bunch of other qualitative inquiry that caused us to make a bunch of interesting changes to the product, both to make it more approachable to Judy, who's an occasional user, but also to put some safety checks in, to put some guardrails in, so that some of these things that we discovered were happening accidentally didn't happen again. And I think that journey is probably one a lot of us have been through, but it's that mix of the qualitative and the quantitative that becomes ever so important for those really deep insights that we actually go and do something with.
Great, thanks. That's a great one.
I can go next. So I think we've been thinking about using data for a while. The real sort of moment for, at least for me, was when, and I think as post-sales leaders, a lot of us go through the same kind of challenge, which is you constantly have to manage within a certain amount of budget, and then that's a constant struggle for you. And we go through this meeting every week where we assess all the accounts, especially the ones that are not going through the adoption cycle fast enough, and what do we do about them? And most of the times, if you have enough money, you can solve all the problems. You can send people on site, you can get on them, but the real challenge for us started happening when we started scaling to a point where we really couldn't give the attention to every single customer, and we needed to find a way to actually figure out where do we engage, what are their patterns, how do they use the product, how do we get assimilated faster. And what we found was, and we started collecting all of this data around how many people are logging in, how many times do they log in, what screens do they spend most amount of time on. And I was talking about the adoption model, and in the beginning of the way customers generally use our product is for diagnostic purposes. So if they have a problem in their production application, they would come inside AppDynamics. They would try to figure out what did AppDynamics actually find was going on in their application at the time. And most of the customers, unless we actually move them into the next level, will stay there. The problem about staying there is that we are not sticking in their environment. If the problem goes away, they stop using the product. And so we have to really assimilate ourselves into the environment. And we were trying to figure out, through all of these patterns, how do we actually assimilate ourselves? And what we found out is most of them, we don't have really a playbook in our product that allows them to move from this diagnostic level into the next level where they can actually start proactively using our product through alerting, monitoring, and so on and so forth. And that creation of the playbook, so collection of that data, understanding the data actually, what it means, interpreting it, and taking that action, yielded a lot of the customers moving faster into the adoption journey, into the second level. And so that's just one of the many stories where we sort of had a problem scaling. We figured out what the problem was by collecting the data, and that sort of yielded a lot of good results for us.
Great.
Yeah, so I think my big epiphany with data came when I started talking to the financial institutions that were using our data to make billions of dollars of loan decisions with their models. And I felt that Abraham Lincoln weight on my shoulder. And ultimately, what it showed is just the power, when you bring, again, it was our data and their data, but when you bring disparate data sets together and you harmonize it and you pour some analytics on top of it, you can make some awesome decisions. And in this context, it was global economy type of level decisions with all these institutions that do business with. But every day I learn more. As we partner with different ecosystems, as we partner with new data providers, just the unlimited amount of interesting help and decisions that data can do, and the amount of change that it can do in the world. So.
Super.
I guess I've had so many epiphanies with data, but I would say externally, I think the fact that we can really demonstrate that data drives business, which again, as a marketer, is really something I never imagined could be possible. Right. And we see it every day, how it creates a funnel, what leads to a conversion, what leads to a lost lead. I mean, every part of the business is being measured and tracked, and really informs how we drive the business. But I think internally, I think data has created trust where there was not trust before in the impact of what we do on the marketing side, at least. And in the beginning, I used to have to come in with like 40 charts and reports and say, let's go through every single page, and everybody would be inspecting every line and saying, I'm looking for the mistake in there. There's got to be something that's not right. And now I go in and I just show one chart, and there's enough trust that's been built up about kind of the scrutiny and the veracity of the data, that it's created a whole different vibe in terms of the marketing department.
Great. Super. What I'd like to do at this point is turn it over to the audience to ask any questions that you guys have. I know you have a variety of customer-driven experiences, customer-driven issues, and it would be great to get your perspective and questions for the panel. So we have a couple people that are handing out microphones, so we'll take some questions. If nobody, before I start calling on people, because I know a few of you out there. So.
Hey, this is Dave Butherall. I actually work for Bill. I'm over here.
I was like,
in the back here, sorry. I was wondering how much you guys are seeing Hadoop adoption in the marketplace, on the marketing side of things, and how much you thought we were in the hype cycle versus the trough of enlightenment, or so basically how much Hadoop usage?
Go ahead, Noam.
One of the things that I'm working on internally at D&B is the transformation of how we deliver content to customers, and a lot of the internal investment is in Hadoop. Right? So as we look at our own internal platforms, it's definitely Hadoop.
So anybody else have a perspective on big data, where that aspect's headed, or?
Yeah, we're going through a big shift right now in some of the, in terms of, from a platform and technology standpoint, in terms of some of the technologies we use. Hadoop is clearly at the center of part of that. One thing that's amazing to see is we were at a conference together 2 weeks ago, and the number of amazing technologies that are coming out right now is truly stunning. In fact, it's a little bit overwhelming, to be totally honest. We've got 4 different teams doing simultaneous evaluations of different technologies, and they're all relatively new. We were spending some time with some folks at big social media companies who are also experimenting with these technologies, and we're all running into kind of the same issues. Like we are definitely in early days with these technologies. That being said, it's really stunning how fast they are being adopted. I mean, if you look in like a 2-year window, these things have gone from a very, very slim set of usage to very, very broad.
Right, and if you also look at it in terms of the price curve and your ability to kind of leverage it, has really accelerated that. Yeah. It's really phenomenal.
It's truly amazing and frightening.
Right. I think it's a natural progression of things. I mean, I think user behavior is shifting where, Twitter, Facebook, Google sort of have spoiled us in a way where you can store data, enormous amounts of data forever. Users expect that from you and your product. Users also expect that you render the data very, very fast. And so one way or the other, I think every company in the world will have to figure out how to use big data in the future for their internal decision making as well as for their own product platform, so that they can serve the needs of their users that are evolving as time passes by.
Okay. Other questions?
Hello, I'm Linda Sharp with Religence here in San Francisco. And I wanted to address the question to Noam and sort of to Anne. You talked about how you thought that the data that you were using could help forge and build relationships now. And what I'm wondering is if you are doing that with lagging data, in other words, historical data, or if you're looking at proactively leading indicators. And from Anne, you were saying that data drove business. I'd put it together and say that relationships drive business and data helps you know what the heck happens. So could you guys kind of comment on that arena?
Sure. So yes, we're looking at both, and maybe the best example of forward-looking data is how we're using data to inform product development. So we're in the software business, so we're actually able to ingest data on usage within our Creative Cloud product, for instance, and understand what features are most exciting or not being used. We actually solicit a lot of feedback online through various sources. We have a labs component on our website where people actually download betas and they give us a lot of feedback on those products. But I would say usage of the product and actually feedback that we are receiving, so actual data, is informing product development. Now, probably the most recent version of a product called Lightroom, which is a photography product, that has so much feedback incorporated into it. Probably the top 5 features were all either suggestions or usage-based data that we have been able to incorporate. So I think increasingly, data is really informing product design for us.
Yeah, so in our world, it's both, and I think they're both just as important. So one is understanding who you've done business with, and then as we look at who do you want to do business with tomorrow. So we have 30,000 sources and 230 million companies that we're getting data about, and about 1.5 million updates a day. And a lot of that is trade data and signals data. And so really what we work with customers on is let's understand who you're doing business today, and using our analytics and those signals to understand either who's risky or who's best to do data with tomorrow. So who would pick up the phone and say, I'm interested in your type of product. And so it's really balancing both of those things.
Great. I think we have time for another question back here.
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Karen. I've worked for SugarSeer. I actually used to work for Informatica. I had a quick question for you about in getting the data, getting the insights out of the data. What has been the biggest challenge for you? Has it been the data acquisition, the data synchronization, or the data cleansing and enrichment?
I think the data cleansing is the biggest sort of challenge, at least for us. I think we as a company, and we're about 600-700 employees. We have about 140 tools internally or more that we use, and each of them is a data source. I think we are in the world where, and I was telling Steve this earlier, where we, everyone chooses best-in-class products to solve a particular use case, and then it becomes a data source, and that journey will continue for us forever. And so really collecting all of that data from all of these tools, making sense out of it, and making sure that data is clean and standardized, has been a sort of a important and challenging journey for us. We've been using Informatica products to actually help us do that, but that sort of has been a big challenge that we had to overcome.
Yeah, I concur. Fortunately, we have wonderful tools for data exchange between systems. Anytime, Sugar is such a great example where if you have a sales representative who's entering data, we're talking about this dynamic where when she's entering the data, she has a mental model of what the field value should be, and she types in whatever comes to her mind. About 6 months ago, we started this thing called the Marketo Institute. And the idea is to take aggregated anonymous data to give people insights about what best practices are across the industry, kind of by vertical, et cetera. And so we were able to get into the data, and oh my goodness, it was so hard to reconcile, what the name of a company is, what the name of geography is, how an industry is classified. It turns out not everybody uses SIC codes, darn it. And so that's been I think is a huge challenge as you get these really, really big data sets, which so many companies are now entering into.
I'd have to concur. So
I was going to say with 200 million.
Yeah, so I think getting data, everybody can get a lot of data now, especially with all these systems. I think it's harmonizing and cleaning it and making sense out of it. And that's a huge part of our business, is helping companies do that. They have CRMs and marketing automation systems that are full of data, and internally we have junk loads and lakes of dirty data. How do we harmonize that into a view that then we can enrich our customers with? So I think cleaning data is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, maybe I'll take
I was going to say, can you take a different
thought.
stance? Like, I like dirty data.
Why
or
not?
something.
I'm last. So I think probably one of the biggest challenges that we still have, and we have cleansing and integration and all of those issues, is still creating kind of a cultural change at our company. And even at a software company, it's taken us quite some time to have everybody really kind of, harmonize their thoughts about data, whether it's single source of truth, who's really the single source of truth, or who are the people who are really in charge of managing the data, and all of this has created new jobs, new processes, new types of talent we need. So I think the cultural implications of becoming a kind of data culture at a company are so profound, and whenever I talk to other CMOs, they're interested in the technology, but we're not technology people typically. What they really want to know is, where do I source talent? What kinds of jobs do we need for this type of transformation of our business? And I think those are as profound as the technical implications.
Great. We have time for one more question in the audience, and then I have a wrap-up question.
We're always trying to prove the value of our website. And one of the things that we struggle with is connecting the dots between online activity and offline behavior. And so I'm wondering if you have experience yourselves or with your customers tackling this challenge, because it seems like a really big piece of the puzzle that we're missing to get full executive buy-in for our website.
Andy, you want to go first, since we already established the Omniture logo?
It's still not perfect, but I referenced kind of the predictive modeling work that we're doing. And there, because it's budget-based essentially, we are able to tease out what, for instance, television or print advertising, even channel activities contribute to a particular campaign. So that's the most sophisticated work that we're doing. There are other projects that we're looking at as well in terms of our cross-channel campaign management capabilities. Still not perfect, but way better.
Super. Steve?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky place. There are some, I do think, powerful emerging technologies where you can take existing data sources, especially in the retail side, checkout data, and then location-based data. I think absolutely in this next kind of 18-month period, the availability of high-quality location-based data and those experiences being integrated and with into lots of our apps is going to be a quick change that we'll see. That ability to reach out to our customers in the context of where they are, overlaid with data about where that store is or where my other people are, is incredibly powerful. And I think that's a place where I think we're going to see a really big breakthrough. It's really tough to know if Noam saw my billboard on 101. But what I can know is that Noam opened my app, or that Noam is in my store or is next door to my store. And so in terms of the offline world, the location-based data, I think, is a really interesting area that we're going to see a lot of change in very, very fast.
Anything? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing some really interesting technologies and data sets that, as data comes in a company's website, you can really start to identify who it is that's coming in, and then associate that with a company and potentially a person and a job. And then, the same, if the right data is being captured and cleaned in a CRM system, you get some really interesting data about who your offline customers are as well. And so I think with the technologies that are out there today, if you enrich the data at the right spots and you harmonize it, you can get a very interesting story.
Great. So that's a really good lead-in question to our last question, which is, I'd like each of you to sort of predict where you think, make one prediction that's bold and provocative for the next 2 to 3 years, with the exception of Noam, because you referenced going back to Abraham Lincoln, so I'd like your prediction to go out 25 years. I figure that's a good milestone. So
or 100
everybody else can do 3, but you got to go way out, Noam.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to go. You can go last.
I'll go last if you want to.
Okay.
I can go first. I think one of the things that's changing, and I'll talk about customer success and make prediction over there, is how users learn how to use your product. And I think the learning journey for the customers is changing, and data has to do everything with that. There are a lot of new technologies and companies that are coming up that are using sort of metadata about the customers, whatever is used through your analytics on the customers itself, and where they log in, what screens do they spend time on, and so on and so forth, what features are they using, and so on and so forth, to actually serve up some of the learning content And I think that will become more and more prevalent.
Are you saying we're going to get Clippy back?
Something like that. I mean, we are trying something like that internally as well. All of us sort of, at least I think all of us have some form of ADD where we have a lot of information coming at us. The model has to change from users going and searching for the data, because no matter how much good your search capabilities are, there is sort of this probability of hit ratio, and to be able to hit 100% ratio of being able to serve up the real content that the user was looking for, you need to be able to use data to actually serve up that content. And that has to become more and more prevalent, and then it will, as the companies evolve their post-sales journey.
Super.
I think we're actually right on the verge of big data indigestion. Like that executives have invested a lot of money on technologies and tools and all these other things. And the promise, frankly, has been it's going to be super easy. And the truth is it's work. It's not super easy. I actually think the part of the conversation that's been left out is on skills. So are executives, are the executives ready to answer the right questions that are going to get out those important insights? Are they going to ask? Are they going to push their teams in the right way to explore the right issues? And then when they look at their teams and the capability of their teams, do they know how to deal with data and think about these things effectively? And so I think that skills shortage, not in all the underlying technologies, but in the human beings, which does include some of the storytelling skills in what the data actually mean. I think that shortage is going to lead to some dissatisfaction and some sort of big data indigestion.
Good job opportunities for people.
Yeah, it's a great problem to solve.
Ann, do you want to go next so you don't have
really
to
gonna
go
wait
out?
Well, I can go.
50 years?
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'll let you go last. Sure. No, it's kind of back to what I was talking about, product design. So I mean, I wake up every morning and I go, oh my God, it's the future. Like you get into your car and my husband has a Tesla, he gets into the car, it says, hi Greg, and it like freaks me out all the time because the fact that all these products are iterating and kind of personalizing themselves based on our usage of the products, and the fact that marketing is basically getting embedded into products, everybody's asking, what kind of form is advertising going to take on mobile? And I keep saying, well, I think the app is actually the ad, because you don't really need a lot of advertising. If you get someone to download your app and you're providing a satisfactory experience, why do you even need an ad? That is your ad. So I just think the ability of all of these different, either devices or actual products to learn about you and to then customize themselves to please you is profound. It's happening already, and I imagine in 5 years it's going to be even more pervasive.
Great.
All right. So if I could do 25-year predictions, I'd be in a yacht somewhere right now, and not at this panel. But I think all the future is going to be much more trustworthy. You mentioned trust. So trust between people based on data, and I think that's what's going to happen. I took an Uber to get here from the airport, and I trusted because I saw rating, right? And there's data involved. There's a lot of data involved. And I think the more data that's out there about people, about corporations, and the more that people merge that into interesting insights, it's going to usher a new level of trust in between people and allow for a whole new set of business models that are based on that trust that can be done directly with people instead of having large intermediaries like taxi companies, for example, right? Okay.
And the Uber driver picked you up because he trusted your rating that you got from all of the other drivers.
Exactly.
Great. I appreciate everybody's time. This has
Thank
been
you.
really valuable. And so I'd like to thank the panel for their time and participation. Thanks.
Thank you.